Hey everybody, how you doing? Joe McCulloch here. Hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week and enjoying some of this gorgeous fall weather. Okay, what I want to do today is go ahead and give you a quick introductory statement. This week we're in Module 5, the Accessibility Online. And this week we've been assigned by Professor Ali to actually take a step back and look deep into how we as teachers are doing in the area of accessibility online. In doing so, we were assigned to evaluate two different teaching materials that we are currently using in resources for our students and to see how we as teachers are doing with designing or utilizing resources that are accessible to some students who have certain viewing or processing and listening disabilities. Now, in the introductory video, Professor Ali had said to us that for some of us, it's going to be an eye-opening experience. After reading both resources from the Rice Chapter 8 and also that of the Online Accessibility Handbook, and also after evaluating several different pieces of my resources that I currently use, I can personally admit I can certainly improve upon, and I'm currently performing in this area to a level that could use some work. I am definitely guilty of not being more diligent and knowledgeable with formatting some of my resources so that they are more accessible to students with some disabilities. To be honest, before this module began, I really have not heard of the word online accessibility. So, this is what these GLAD courses are for, is to get us looking into these types of issues and just, professionally develop. Now, some points that I want to share with you guys before I begin. Like many schools that have done so in the past, my school does not use Microsoft products. Okay, they're expensive over time, and with the pandemic and even prior to the pandemic, for the past 4 years, we have migrated at my school district to get right away from all the Microsoft documents and Microsoft suites and PowerPoint presentations, and we have migrated over into the Google Suite uh, tools. Okay, a lot of my older documents, and maybe they're not old, but they're older to some degree, are all done in Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint. And so it's just been a big challenge in converting everything over throughout my 18-year career. Okay. Um, so I just want to be clear to everyone. I know several of you folks so far, from what I've seen, you've chosen to use the Microsoft Suite for this Module 5, accessibility. But for me, I wanted to make sure that I made the information of this grad course relevant to my actual teaching situation. So in doing so, I'm going to not be using any of the Microsoft today, and I'm going to be using the Google Suite tools. Okay. With that being said, I did find some great information and resources to share with all of you in regards to online accessibility with that of Google Suite tools. First off, formatting, like I said earlier, has just been a big issue. With converting old Microsoft documents to the Google Suite, even after you use their recommended converter and settings, spending many hours over the many, many years, the past 4 years, that is, many documents don't always convert over correctly, and the settings don't come over correctly, and the font, and different ways it's set up with the justification of the images, etc. They're all off, or all could be off. And for some of us who are using the Google Suite tools, or should I say many of them, we're kind of starting off on the wrong foot when it comes to being able to edit our electronic documents so that they're more accessible to students with disabilities. Okay, so that's challenge number one. Um, but after utilizing the two resources from this module that Professor Ali has given us, which is the Rice and also the Rice chapter, and also the Online Accessibility Handbook, and also finding some other resources on my own, here is what I have come up with through my critiques. Okay, so what I would like to do first is show you a couple things that I've done on my own first. So I went out on the internet, spent many hours looking for different Google documents that I can use for accessibility, different tutorials, things like that. So what I have for you guys is a couple things. Number one, I have a resource here I found that gives you an overview of the Google Docs accessibility features. Okay, so I did include this in my presentation today, and I will send that to you guys in the post replies that we do. So this was, I thought, was a great resource to go over. This man here, he just shows you the different features of Google Docs and accessibility. Okay, such as the screen reader, things like that. Okay, so I don't want to go too far into that. You can check that out on your own. I also found this awesome article from NC State University that breaks down, how to create an accessible Google Doc. Okay, and the simple ways that you can go ahead and do that. Okay, and it also includes a couple videos that were very informative as well. So I want you to make sure you check out that if you're into Google Docs and Google Slides. All right. Next, I also found out from this Minnesota University article some other important information about how to improve upon accessibility with your Google Docs and Google Slides. Okay, so I use this as also another good resource. Okay, now in also defining my research for Google Docs and Google Slide accessibility, I found a pretty awesome tool called Grackle. Okay, basically what this tool does is it's a free add-on tool that you can get for your Google Chrome extensions. All right, now there is a trial version which is more basic and generic. Okay, and then there's a full license. All right, so I use the trial version for now, obviously, but it acts very similar to the other platforms that some of you have been using for your online checking of accessibility. Okay, so it kind of, here's an example of what it would look like in a picture form. It shows you like what's wrong with the document and how to fix it. So I'll go into that in a little bit. But what I'd like to show you next is I put all these 4 handouts that I used, or should I say 4 resources that I used, and I typed it up on a Google Doc so I can send to you guys so that you can have it if you want to go ahead and check this stuff out. I really think it's important that we tie this all into our current situation with teaching, and we currently use heavily Google Suites. So I really wanted to focus on that to make the information very current. Okay. All right. Now, another thing I did for everyone and for also myself is also I typed up, just a basic generic list of all the different things that we need to keep in mind for our students when we're trying to make accessible Google Documents or Google Slides. Or Google Forms for that matter. Okay, so I'm not going to go through and read these off. Many of these are similar and parallel to what Professor Ali has provided for us with the online handbook, which I thought also was another great resource to use for the Microsoft documents and the PDF documents and that. So we're going to go ahead now and just go into next what I wanted to show you and how this looks. Okay, so let me go ahead and get situated here. All right, good. So, when taking a look at the RICE resources and also the online resource handbook, and trying to incorporate that into this assignment, first off, the RICE resource was really just jam-packed with some great information about special needs students and their disabilities, and it provided much insight in many areas, such as ways to identify the risks students have and their different types of disabilities. They might have disabilities such as speech impairment, vision, hearing, different learning processing disabilities, etc. In the RICE resource, we learned that online environments can actually provide us as a solid means for students because of the built-in accommodations that it can provide. And then also in the RICE resource, what I thought was really, really good to give us some insight on the different types of special education laws that are out there that we need to follow. and also the different types of differentiated instruction that we can use. A big factor for me in the RICE resource was checking out the figure 8.1 for the special needs checklist. I thought that was very helpful as well in conducting my research on this assignment. Now, as far as the online handbook goes, okay, that document or PDF is very, very informative. I did go through it and read each part of it. I did think that it was very, very well written, and I will be using that in the future for my Microsoft Word documents, my Microsoft PowerPoint documents, and different websites to evaluate things like that. So I want to say that is definitely a helpful resource. But for my purposes and my teaching experience, I focus more on Google Suite for this assignment. Okay, so what I like to do now is just present to you how I went about this with my two assignments that I wanted to critique. So here's for my first assignment, or should I say my first resource that I use with my sixth grade tech ed engineering students. Okay, so before we go into building our balsa wood towers, okay, kids team up in groups of two and they start researching and getting ideas for how to build a design for their towers. So this is one of the activities where I take them on a website exploration, kind of like a field trip, I guess you would say, and they explore this website, okay, which is called pbs.org. Skyscraper website. Okay, really cool website, very up to date, provides a lot of great information. Okay, and what I do is I parallel the website to this activity that you see in front of you, which is basically a Google document. Okay, this originally was a Microsoft document, but I did convert it over many years ago. Okay, so how this works is this: you open up the document. Okay, now just to let you guys know if you're not familiar, in the tools section on Google Docs, there is an accessibility settings. It's kind of generic, to be honest with you. You can turn these on, the screen reader, that will also turn on the collaborator part of it as well. Braille support you can turn on, and then the next screen magnifier. So, these are all settings you can play around with for the students that might have disabilities that we're trying to address here. Okay, so but we're going to cancel that. And I want to show you the add-on. Okay, so the add-on that I used was called Grackle. It is a third-party add-on, and it's very, very, very similar to some of the things that you guys have been using with your Microsoft accessibility checkers that you've been using. Okay, now this is how it works. So you go to add-ons, you go to Grackle Docs, and you go to Launch. Okay, so I have already downloaded this in an earlier step, okay, before I came on today to give you this presentation. So what you do is you hit launch, and then over here, just like some of the other online accessibility checkers, it'll scan the document so you can see the little things here, the little dots that are moving, okay, and it says it's checking, and it says right now there's 21 of 22 checks passed. Now I already scanned this a few moments ago, and I did notice that the document title wasn't required. So what I did was I went in and I edited that so that I would get a green check, so to speak. Okay, so the green checks are good. The red X's are the suggested edits that you should do. Okay, so I did go ahead and make that earlier adjustment. Okay, document language should be specified. So it kind of tells you each of the categories is very organized and laid out. As you can see up here, it says document. Okay, and that's the section on the overall document itself. This little section here is images. Okay, what things you could do to make your images more clear and concise for people who have these disabilities. So I got a lot of checks in here, it looks like. Now this one here does say images should have alternate text. I know we've been dealing with that here in this assignment. So obviously you could click on it. What's really cool is it actually locates it and shows it for you. Okay, so these would be all the images that I have to go back in and take a look at. By the way, for people who are looking to see where they're at, well, I'm thinking we're talking about the ones down here. Okay, so these are different parts and components to the lab that they're working on with this website exploration activity. Okay, so how this works basically, it'll locate it for you. So let's just go back to the top here. This one's under the section called tension. which is one of the types of forces that we explain and talk about in our engineering class. And when you click on it, it'll say here, add your alternative text for the image. Okay, so I would just type in, tension force. Okay, now I know we're not going to be editing these on our presentation here, but I just want to give an idea. And then you hit update. All right, and it will update, and then it will. You go back and you do a recheck on this right here. Okay, where it says recheck, and it'll rescan it for you, and then it'll show that your edit went through. Okay, so as you can see now, it's in green. All right, so I thought that was pretty awesome that they have that as well, and being able to locate it exactly in the document was something that I thought was useful. Okay, so this section here is all about images. Okay, so after images, they also have a section called headings. All my headings look to be pretty good, so that's cool. If you had to adjust something, you would go there and locate it and then make that change. All right, so let's go down to tables. Now, to be honest with you, from my research and from what some of the things that Professor Ali's resources have also talked about in the online handbook, Google Docs doesn't have the best table format. Okay, so we have to be careful when we're doing that. Okay, so basically a good reminder for when you're doing tables on Google Docs is, keep it simple, um, and also, have it so that like when you're reading a book, you read from left to right and then from top to bottom. Okay, so when you go to do a table like that, make sure you have that in mind. Okay, now my generic table here, it says it looks pretty good overall, but if you had to go in and make your changes, these would of course be in red, and then you would go in and make the change wherever it may be, and then you would hit recheck or refresh. Okay, and then the last part here is called landmarks. Okay, actually there's two more parts. Landmarks. So let's click on that. We'll show you what that is. Headers and footers. So this says this document does not contain a header or a footer. So it'll just tell you, the different bits of pieces of information for the overall document. I did notice that one of them did say about one of my text being not as readable. Oh, right here it is. This is under contents. Fine print should be avoided. So you click on that. This is a font size 8. So it says locate it. So when I go to hit the locate button, it's showing me right here that this is a little too small. And maybe the color itself could be changed. Okay, now I know I use a white background with black letters or black font with a pretty easily readable font, but some things on here could be used better and more efficiently. So I can go in and then just locate that, like I said, and then make that change. All right, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that now because I don't want to waste too much more time on this. But you can see that this is pretty organized. It shows you how to get to where you got to go and do that. Avoid all caps, okay, and then different things with alignment issues. I guess one of my paragraphs. Actually, no, it's not lengthy. Okay, so it checks basically all that stuff. Okay, now over here, document structure. This is what I thought was pretty helpful, and it just shows you how your whole document is laid out. Okay, so I thought that was neat. I wanted to show you that real quick. Okay, so then when you're done, you would just hit the recheck button and then see if you're all good. Okay, now that is for my Google Docs Word doc critique. Okay, so overall, not too shabby. Some things I got to do in there to make it better, yes, but overall, not a bad document overall. Okay, so let's go into my next resource that I currently use as well. In my engineering and design class, I also use this PowerPoint presentation. It was originally a PowerPoint, however, I had to convert it over into a Google format, so it became into a Google Slides presentation now. And let's go ahead and check that out. I believe, let's just check out the amount of slides on here. Is there 7? Actually, no, there's more. Okay, so there's like 11 different slides. Okay, so this is all about the engineering and design process, which is a pretty awesome series of steps that my students follow when they go to design and build their projects in our class. All right, so what I want to do, let's go back to the top here, is just show you how this works. Same idea. So the great thing about Grackle is that it can also be used, let me just go there, with Google Slides and Google Forms. Okay, so notice now it says Grackle Slides. In the other document, it said Grackle. Here, let's show you Grackle Docs. Okay, so you can do it for several different ones. All right, so we're going to go ahead now, go to add-ons, go to Grackle Slides, and we're going to launch it. And what this does is it basically is the same thing as what we talked about in the last resource area that I just went over, and it's checking it. Okay, so as you can see here, it says 13 of 16 checks have been passed. The overall presentation was for the title was good. Document language should be specified. So if we click on that, right now it's a red X. We can hit set language here, I guess, and then check mark that. And I use the Google Doc name. The language is down here, set as default. Okay, so yeah, I would have to go in and check English on here. Not quite sure which one's English yet on this one because this one has a lot more choices than the other ones. Maybe this right here. Okay, so anyway, and then we would hit update. All right, and then once you go back and hit the recheck button, okay, it'll rescan it again, and then it should give you the green check mark, meaning that you're okay and good. Yeah, there it goes. See how it says passed? All right, cool. So, same idea and layout as the other presentation for the Google Doc. You have Google Slides. So right now this says the slide should have a title. So I guess I need to go in and slide 11 is going to need a title. So if I were to go ahead and just buzz down here to slide 11, looks like I don't have a title for this one right here. So I would go ahead and have to title that. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. So the check marks here all look pretty good. The table passed, so that's cool. It also has other elements such as this right here. Okay, images should have alternate text, so we're seeing a lot of that. And obviously, just like I talked about a few moments ago, you can click to the image, and then it will show you, where it's at and what you need to do to change it. Okay, so if I wanted to go ahead and change that, I would just go into it and edit it and give it a name. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on down. You know what? There's a bunch of images on there. Okay, so then also at the end here, it says your list should not be broken apart, so I'll have to go in and check that. By the way, I do not know all of these functions and features yet, so that will take something that will take some time. And then also just the last part called contents. It says high contrast should be used, and then all these other different suggestions that I'll have to go in and check on. Okay, now what I would like to do is just sum this all up and say that this was a great activity. It really brought a lot of insight into me about how disability students have difficulties with online learning, with screen reading and things like that. And checking our documents that we use on a daily basis is very important. And like I said earlier to begin, I'm guilty of not checking all my documents, and that as an 18-year teacher, I have developed a lot of curriculum over the years, and it's just a long process to get all this stuff completely up to date and on par with the constantly ever-changing society of online learning. So I think it would be really helpful that if we actually have like a support teacher or special needs teacher to help us out with converting some of these documents over, because it definitely would be a painstaking process to do that. But the idea behind this chapter and this module that Professor Ali has given us to go ahead and research and embark upon was to just try to be more accountable and aware for our special needs students and the struggles and the situations that they go through. So this was a great module to help do that, accompanied with the resources that were provided and the ones that I have found on my own as well have opened my eyes to me, becoming a little bit more aware and try to make a more diligent effort into, making those changes. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. I'm gonna call it quits for today. Thanks for listening up onto my presentation today, and I hope you guys have a great day.